Ever heard of the Great Blizzard of 1949? It was a winter storm of biblical proportions that buried America's Great Plains under mountains of snow. For states like Nebraska, Wyoming, and South Dakota, it was a nightmare. Entire towns vanished under the white blanket. Roads ceased to exist. Farms were flash frozen, and thousands were trapped, cut off from the world, with no heat, no food, and no way to call for help. In a small, snow-swallowed town in Nebraska lived a 33-year-old farmer named Clarence Shepard. He wasn't a celebrity or a politician. He was just an ordinary, quiet man. The kind of guy you'd call if your tractor broke down. When the blizzard slammed his region, Clarence's own farm was completely isolated. Snowdrifts towered over 6 feet high, and the world outside his window was a screaming vortex of ice and wind. But what truly chilled him to the bone was want the cold. It was a rumor he heard on his crackling party line telephone before it went dead. A nearby family, a young mother with her 2 small children, were trapped. Their fuel had run out, and they had no food. The line went silent. Everyone who heard the news was heartbroken, but they all said the same thing. It was impossible. A suicide mission. The wind was a physical wall, the snow a bottomless pit. Reaching them was out of the question, but for Clarence, impossible wasn't an answer. He couldn't just sit by his warm fire, knowing those children were freezing. So, he made a decision. He layered himself in every piece of wool and leather he owned. He grabbed a heavy rope, tying one end firmly around his waist. He loaded a wooden sled with precious cargo: blankets, firewood, and what little food he could spare. As he stood at the door, a wall of white fury staring back at him, he turned to his wife. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of the world. "If I don't come back, tell our boys I tried." And with that, he stepped into the abyss. Pushing forward into the storm was like fighting a ghost. Every step was a battle. He pulled that heavy sled through snow that came up to his chest. The wind was a razor, slicing at any exposed skin. The cold was so intense, his hands, raw and bleeding, felt like they were on fire. Hour after agonizing hour, he fought. He wasn't just walking. He was climbing, digging, and crawling his way through a frozen hell. After what felt like an eternity, covering nearly 5 treacherous miles, he saw it. A small shape, a frozen lump, barely recognizable as a house. He clawed his way to the door, breaking it open. Inside, he found the family huddled together, barely conscious, their breath like faint clouds in the frigid air. Without a second to waste, Clarence sprang into action. He got a fire roaring in the hearth, its light and warmth a beacon of hope in the darkness. He gently fed the mother and her children, wrapping the little ones snugly in the warm blankets he'd dragged all this way. He didn't leave. He stayed with them through the night, keeping the fire alive, a guardian angel sent from the heart of the storm. 2 days later, when the storm finally broke and the first rescue teams made it through, they found the house. And inside, they found all 3 of them, the mother and her 2 children. They were alive because of one man's impossible journey. Clarence himself paid a price. The doctors told him the frostbite on his hands was severe. He would likely lose his fingers. But when he heard this, he just smiled a tired, gentle smile. "They're just fingers," he said. "I can live without them." Those kids couldn't have lived without warmth. Clarence Shepard never became famous. There were no medals, no parades, no headlines in the national news. His story was a quiet one, passed down through his community, a whispered legend of true, selfless bravery. It's a powerful reminder that heroes aren't always forged in the spotlight. They aren't defined by power or wealth. Sometimes, the greatest heroes are found on quiet farms, in small towns, armed with nothing more than a big heart and the courage to choose compassion over comfort and sacrifice over fear. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please give it a thumbs up, and consider subscribing for more stories of the quiet heroes who walk among us. We'll see you in the next video.